Let's talk to the Shadow Chancellor, Sir Stride, who joins us now. Good to see you this morning. I mean, look, a lot of experts are saying this morning that this whole spending review was designed to take on the threat of Reform UK, the threat that they're posing to the government. Tories seem to be an irrelevance to her.
Sorry, Tories seem to be... I missed the end of the question, Stephen, sorry.
An irrelevance.
Oh, an irrelevance. No, not at all. Look, we were in the official opposition. We were in there. I was the person up at the dispatch box holding Rachel Reeves to account yesterday, amongst other recent things. Of course, we've forced a U-turn on the winter fuel payment means testing that the government brought in. But look, overall, with this spending review, the question that needs to be asked is, where is the money coming from? It's all very well to say you're spending all this cash left, right and centre. Well, the answer is it's coming by way of far higher taxes, particularly on businesses, and that is destroying growth. It has also come by way of huge levels of additional borrowing, which has been inflationary, which has been interest rates have been higher for longer, our national debt growing, and the servicing costs of that debt, because of the higher interest rates, now running at £100 billion per year. That's twice what we spend on defence, and that's leaving us overall in a very fragile position with a lot of challenges ahead, and a lot of people worried now that we're going to be looking at potentially very significant further tax rises in the autumn.
Can I ask your reaction to the GDP figures out this morning from April of this year? The economy shrunk by 0.3%. Now, I'm sure we're talking to Rachel Reeves just after 9 o'clock this morning. I'm sure she's going to say that in part this is down to the White House, to Liberation Day, to Donald Trump's tariffs and the shock that came from that. Do you think this is down to the White House, or is this down to Downing Street?
Well, look, things internationally, of course, have an impact, but that's more the reason, or all the more reason, why you build a strong economy. And that 0.3% shrinkage in GDP is pretty shocking, but it's not entirely surprising. In terms of the fragility of our economy, of course, what the Chancellor does is builds in some fiscal headroom against her fiscal targets. Now, the headroom that she had at the time of the autumn budget last year, all of that disappeared and more because of her mismanagement of the economy. She rebuilt it in the spring statement, but most economists are saying that that headroom would have evaporated again come the autumn. So, you know, she's got big challenges, not just tariffs, maybe pressure to spend more on defence in the near future. The winter fuel payment U-turn has not been funded. That's over £1 billion. It's quite possible that the bond markets may react badly to all of this, which would put our borrowing costs up, which could have a very detrimental impact on the economy. But all of that means that in that kind of world, you have to build a strong economy with a good amount of fiscal headroom that you can maintain, and she has failed to do that and has already given us the evidence that she can't do that because she's blown it all in the past.
There is an argument to say, though, isn't there, that if you want to have a growing economy, which they've told us that from day one that is what they want to do, lay the foundations, they said, in the first year. Now they're on phase 2, according to the Prime Minister. And an increase in capital spending is a way to do that, isn't it?
Well, provided you can afford to do it, Stephen. But if you're engaged in ruinous levels of taxation, borrowing and spending, then you just end up with a very, very fragile economy and a rather dangerous situation. Look, what the government should have done when they came in is not load up taxes on businesses and destroy job creation and growth. They shouldn't have talked down the economy in the way that they did, that extinguished the animal spirits. They should have focused far more on productivity. Do you remember they gave 14% to train drivers, 22% to junior doctors, not one requirement for any productivity gains for those actual increases, and they should have gripped the welfare budget. Now, we had made huge progress when we were in office. We'd saved £5 billion from the welfare budget, and that was scored by the Office of Budget Responsibility, and that would have seen 450,000 fewer people going on to long-term sickness benefits. One of the first things this government did was to scrap that. They've got no plans for getting on top of the welfare bill. Now, if you do those things, don't be surprised if we're running out of money, which is what we're seeing, I'm afraid, with the economy at the moment.
The government has agreed a post-Brexit deal over Gibraltar. What do you make of that deal?
So we need to look at it in closer detail. What is absolutely vital is that sovereignty is not put in question when it comes to Gibraltar. We're hearing, and I'm only just literally picking it up this morning a little bit, that there will be Spanish officials now involved in at the airport and so on and so forth. We really need to unpack this and understand what it means, but we will need to really look at the detail a little more closely. But sovereignty has to be maintained. The only other thing I would say is, of course, we've seen with the Chagos Islands what this government does when it starts to negotiate with other countries, and where that can lead, which in that case was an absurd surrender and paying for the privilege of doing so.
OK. Sir Mel Stride, as always, it's good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
It's interesting. I mean, it's interesting. He was talking about unpacking what's going on in Gibraltar, which is a valid point. You need to do that. What we've also got to do is unpack this spending review. I can't just work how many pages it was. Isn't it like 178 pages, the spending review?
Dense, yeah.
And you've got it's like with the budget, basically, and you've got to go through it with a fine-tooth comb to work out actually what wasn't said yesterday in the House. And what actually is going to mean. I mean, it's things
Does it add up?
Well, yeah, and it's things like with the police funding, which some people are saying is going to go down in real terms, but actually it is getting an increase, sort of. But you know, where that's going to go on council tax. So it looks like. So it's all these little bits of detail that you've got to work at, and it's going to take a while.